Your endless time, baby. A couple months into the year, but whatever. And let me tell you about 9 games I loved from the past 2 years. Now, this list is not intended to be exhaustive. There are plenty of games I wanted to play but did not have the time or money to. So if there's a game I didn't mention that you loved, just drop it down in the comments. Now, this list is not a top 9, it's not presented in any particular order. With that out of the way, here are 9 games from the past 2 years that I loved. SpiderMan. A Ubisoft-style open-world game starring a veteran Spider-Man, traversing New York with some satisfying web-swinging, going from event to event. This is not the most innovative per se, but this is definitely one of the more engaging open-world games I've played, being a master of focus. The game even managing to maintain good pacing, which is rare in more open-ended games where you just spend hours doing some inane side activity. The side tasks themselves are engaging and focused. I mean, nice crimes anyway. 100% completion doesn't feel like mindless busy work. The game also looks pretty good, honestly. Not just the attention to detail or the mocap acting, both of which are good, but this game manages to maintain a sense of style while having a realistic aesthetic. The action scenes are creative and the superpowers look dope as hell. Although in my mind, the main appeal of this game is the characters and writing, each character being compelling in their own way, from characters in the main storyline to even the ones in the side quests. It also had a surprisingly good romantic subplot about Mary Jane and Peter Parker. Plus, there are plenty of strong, emotional moments throughout. My only complaint, honestly, is how the game handles the police. Like having individual cops as likable characters isn't inherently bad, but the game is annoyingly uncritical of the institution as a whole. Peter even fixing the police's surveillance network, which is fucked up. This combined with the demonization of prisoners made me more than a bit uncomfortable. But hey, I'm working on a full review of this game, so if you want to hear more complete thoughts on the subject, check that out when it drops. Despite these flaws, SpiderMan is one of the best open world games out there and one of the best interpretations of the character. The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit. I haven't had a chance to play Life is Strange 2 yet, but this game hit me in a very particular way. The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit is a Life is Strange spin-off about a boy named Chris who plays pretend as a superhero named Captain Spirit, acting out his many adventures battling evil. These fantasies seeming to serve as a coping mechanism against an abusive father and the death of his mother. At its core, this game is an exploration of Chris's relationship with his father, an exploration of how Chris deals with a toxic family dynamic. The portrayal of abuse being what really hit home for me, because this game really captured the dynamic of an abusive family. Not going into details, but this game feels very true to my own experience with things like that. The sense of walking on eggshells, the desire for escapism, and even the denial of being a victim. Captain Spirit walks a fine line with Chris's dad, and it walks it better than anything in recent memory. Throughout the game, you can find various objects that hint at Chris and his dad's history. The death of Chris's mom, the dad's unemployment and turn to drinking. The final scene even implies that his dad on some level blames Chris for his wife's death. All this painting the picture of a man who, because of tragedy and pain, goes from an otherwise decent father into an abuser. The game, however, focuses on how this affects Chris, and that is this game's biggest strength, and how it humanizes an abusive father while never neglecting the feelings of the victim. I mean, most abusers aren't pure evil. They are not this malevolent being bent only on pain and misery. They are people who do shitty things, and by painting them as evil, it becomes easy to distance ourselves from them, to pretend that could never be us. Captain Spirit is truly something special, tapping into this dynamic, giving form to these feelings we might not realize we have. Talking about something like this and doing it well. Humanizing an abusive parent while not dismissing the pain they cause. So yeah, this game is free. I recommend checking it out if you haven't already. So, have you heard of this little game called Undertale? It was a bit of a sleeper hit, don't you know? Well, Deltarune is a follow-up to it. Not a sequel or a prequel, just a follow-up, expanding the combat system by adding multiple party members. The game concerns itself with Chris, the voiceless player character, and Susie, the school bully, who finds himself in a weird alternate world meeting the third party member, Rolse, claiming that they're the grand heroes of light who need to unite to save the world and do the good thing. Also, there's Lancer, a bad guy, kind of. Rouse is adorable and all that, Lancer is entertaining, and Chris is interesting. Susie, however, is the one who gets the main character arc, in some way losing her blind thirst for violence through the power of friendship. The combat is pretty good as well, iterating on Undertale's combat with the bullet hell dodging with the addition of TP, which you can use to, well, mostly heal at first. There are also some neat ways you can spare some certain enemies. Like Undertale, it's also a meta-exploration of the nature of video game storytelling and the nature of choice, namely the meaningless nature of those choices. In many ways, Deltarune feels like a mini Undertale. The same charming writing, strong emotional moments, engaging and sometimes intense combat, memorable and charming characters, and I'm interested to see where this game goes from here. Anyway, it's free, so if you liked Undertale, check it out. Or even if you haven't played Undertale, maybe check it out too, because knowledge of Undertale is not really necessary. Baba Is You. Baba Is You is a game where you are Baba, except when you are Kiki. The main gimmick of the game is that you can rearrange words in order to change the rules of the game. What you control, what can and can't stop objects, what you need to touch in order to win, etc. Which makes for some mind-bending puzzles, as you might figure. The game is also pretty well paced, slowly introducing new concepts as you progress, namely new rules, all wrapped in this charming little package. So if the premise intrigues you, check it out, because Baba Is You is one of the most engaging puzzle games in recent memory. WarioWare Gold. I'm a little bit of a fan of the WarioWare series. WarioWare is about a gauntlet of microgames, short minigames lasting only a couple seconds, with you either trying to complete a certain number of them in a stage or just trying to see how long you can last. WarioWare Gold feels like very much a celebration of the long-running series, filled with remakes of microgames from every WarioWare game except that DSiWare one with the camera, plus plenty of collectibles filled with references to the rest of the series. The game making use of most of the unique hardware of the 3DS for the microgames. Touchscreen, microphone, gyroscope, a bunch of disparate microgames all built to utilize a particular gimmick being brought together under one game, maintaining the main hook of the previous WarioWares. Like a lot of games, it operates on the hook of improved mastery, where you play to get better and see how far you can go, to beat your high score. WarioWare is a personal favorite type of that game for me, from it starting you off with concrete goals to work towards, to the variety of microgames in each attempt. It's engaging and exciting and a great way to burn a couple minutes. In addition to all that, the WarioWare games are all brimming with personality, with distinct, memorable characters and a goofy aesthetic and sense of humor. WarioWare Gold continues that trend while expanding it a bit. This is the first time any WarioWare game has been fully voiced. The cutscenes, while simple, are surprisingly charming. WarioWare Gold is the best that WarioWare has ever been, and if you love WarioWare or just want to check it out, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, nice horsey.
Cricket, you've picked up a passenger.
What? Oh, I didn't notice. Little girl, get off.
Kingdom Hearts 3. I love this stupid series. Despite being lukewarm on a lot of Disney's animated stuff, this series has really managed to hook me, mostly for the JRPG stuff, with fantastic combat, gorgeous visuals, and engaging characters. Also Kairi's there, I guess. Kingdom Hearts 3 is very much a modern Kingdom Hearts, from graphical fidelity to the composition of the cutscenes, and it maintains what I love and hate about the series while iterating on it. There's the flowing and energetic combat, the interesting RPG collectibles, and the fantastic moments littered throughout. From epic triumphs to more emotional moments. The flaws of the series still persist though. The writing can be awkward at points, especially in the Disney worlds. In general, the Disney worlds were always the weakest part of the series for me. There are some fun moments, but not only do the visits to the world not really feel like an advancement of the overall story, instead being more of a short story involving Sora and friends, the quality of these short stories can vary from fun adventures to the movie, but not as good. Like, there are small updates after completing the worlds, but at the final world, it feels like a dam bursting open. But the Disney worlds here do have an advantage over the previous games in that exploring and just moving around a space feels like super good now. Like, it's weird how good just moving from point A to point B can feel. But what makes this game really special to me is the conclusion of the storyline that I have been following for, 17 years now? It was really something neat to see the story of Aqua and Xehanort and all of this that I followed since I was a child being brought to a close. Although some resolutions are better than others. Like, I loved Aqua's resolution, but Shion's was a big anticlimax, honestly. Especially given the specifics of Shion's situation. Also, it's kind of impressive how much this game fucks over Kairi. Like, goddamn. Despite this game, like the others, being one that I can complain about for a long-ass time, I still really had a great time with it. It is Kingdom Hearts, for good and for ill. There are narrative flaws, but the act of playing through the games and finding enemies and bosses, of exploring the world, of collecting stuff, it's all fantastic. Just like the previous games, honestly. Also, while this game does go to great pains to welcome new players, I wouldn't recommend starting your Kingdom Hearts journey with this any more than I recommend starting Lord of the Rings with Return of the King.
I have been falling for 30 minutes!
The Missing, JJ Macfield and the Island of Memories. A puzzle platformer in the vein of Limbo or Inside. Walking continuously to the right, you go through a variety of environments, solving puzzles and trying not to die. The main gimmick is that you can survive while missing most of your body. It can be brutal. Although I'm not sure how a barbed wire fence can just plop off an arm, but okay. This injury gimmick is very much a core to the gameplay, with puzzles often involving injuring yourself in a certain way. By making yourself smaller, or by setting yourself on fire to set something else on fire, or breaking your neck to reverse gravity. And it always looks painful as hell, I mean, yeesh. Yeah, if you're off put by stuff like this, maybe give this one a pass. You'll also unlock JJ's text messages throughout the game, which is your main source for information of JJ's actual life outside of this weird hell island. Unlike Limbo or Inside, the themes and world are more explicitly defined and are less vague and opaque, with Limbo and Inside being more about atmosphere and theme, while JJ Macfield is more about the life of its titular character. There is a clear and defined backstory that is revealed slowly throughout the game. What pleasantly surprised me the most was a distinctly queer core to the story. I can't talk about that too much without spoiling the game, but it's not something you see in a lot of games. And there really was something about its slow reveal that worked for me. So that's cool. So overall, it's a creepy and engaging puzzle platformer with a surprisingly compelling main character. Secret Little Haven. Anyone remember the internet before Facebook and Twitter? Before big social media conglomerates. The days of dedicated message boards where you would go and chat about whatever weird thing strikes your fancy. Now, admittedly, my memories of that internet are mostly through me being a dumb kid, but it is remarkable how much has changed thanks to this pasty fuck. Secret Little Haven is at its core a story of internet community. About how that community can be a little haven from your troubles. A little haven from stuff like overbearing parents, or just the unpleasant minutiae of your life. Well, that sounded more depressing than I intended. Said community even being able to provide support in a way that your local community might not be able to. Secret Little Haven is both a story of toxic parenting and a queer coming-of-age story told through the lenses of internet nostalgia and Sailor Moon fandom, all in a retro computer OS, with simple applications and even a few games, really immersing the player in the world of internet fandom pre-Tumblr. It's a short, charming little game. The ending is admittedly a bit schmaltzy, but in a way that I honestly welcome. It's short, charming, and engaging. Check it out. Fire Emblem 3 Houses. Have you ever had those games where you're just like, let me play a bit longer, just a little more? Fire Emblem 3 Houses has been that for me lately. The latest in Nintendo's Anime War series, you play as one Byleth. Child of a renowned mercenary Geralt who was also a renowned knight at one point, Byleth gets roped into teaching a class at a military academy run by the church, choosing from one of 3 houses to teach. The game is split into 2 parts. One where you're simply teaching your class. The second half is the war campaign essentially. Splitting it this way actually does make the war effort feel more substantial, as the actors in the war are people you have already become acquainted with. And that helps the emotional impact as the war effort involves murdering all the former students that you haven't recruited to your class. Now, full disclosure, I've only completed 1 route of this game, because it is a very long game. But hey, I liked it enough to include in this list. But I will have to wait to see the whole game in order to give my thoughts on the themes and writing. The combat is compelling if challenging enough. If it's too easy, then it's just a bit dull. I would recommend playing on hard, honestly, because even on hard, some missions were still too easy for me, so I can't really imagine what normal was like. But on hard, there were some tense moments as I tried to whittle down the enemy. Now, in my mind, the main draw of this game is the interactions between the characters, mainly through its support system. Basically, there are a series of levels of support between you and the characters, as well as between the characters themselves. By increasing support, you not only increase bonuses in the battlefield between the 2 characters, but you also get a little scene between them as well. This, combined with the game's light time management aspect, kinda reminds me of the Persona series, although the time management aspect here is definitely less strict. Plus, unlike Persona, the characterization from the support scenes is more spread out. In Persona, all the social links are focused solely on the player character, while in Fire Emblem 3 Houses, there are a lot of little details about the characters that you only get from support conversations outside of Byleth. Like, Byleth is still the most uber important person around, but the characterization is at the very least less centralized than in Persona. Overall, it's a thoroughly engaging, if long, game with a plethora of engaging and likable characters.
How did you manage to faint while standing up?
Video games.